Yes, ma'am, you can start the slide.
Okay. Good afternoon to all of you. Thank you for being with us. Today we have the third part of our series on COVID. And having dealt with chemotherapy and radiation, we thought surgery was an important aspect to be dealt with. And so we thought of doing the COVID-19 and surgery. We have Dr. Anil De Cruz, who's the Director of Oncology in Apollo Hospitals in Mumbai, Chennai, and Delhi. And he, as you know, he's a very well recognized leader for head and neck surgeries, and also very well known in his as a teacher and researcher. He was the ex-director at Tata Memorial Hospital earlier before he joined Apollo, and he has more than 33 years of experience. He has been serving UICC for a couple of years, and now he's the president-elect. In fact, in October, he was supposed to take on as president, but now with all this COVID situation, he'll be the best person to tell us about it. So over to you, Dr. De Cruz. Good afternoon and welcome.
Thank you very much, Vandana. Am I well heard?
Yeah, you are.
Okay. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. I get a little worried when people say 33 years experience and everybody tries to calculate my age. So you can just say that he's got a lot of experience. I feel more comfortable with that. Yeah, but yes, I used to be with the Tatas. I'm now with the Apollo as the director oncology for the entire group. I practice in Delhi, Mumbai, and Chennai. I also do UICC, and for the people who don't know what UICC is the Union International for Cancer Control. It's the largest NGO that's committed to cancer control globally. We have more than 1,200 members, and the members are not individuals, they are organizations. So like VCare will be a member. So everybody in VCare is a member, and this spans around more than 125 countries that are members of UICC. I'm delighted to be here. I'll be happy to take questions. Vandana can ask me, or our viewership can ask me, or anybody of the team can ask me. Before I go on, one of my very proud feathers that I wear in my hat, and I'm surprised Vandana didn't introduce me that way. I've been a trustee of VCare, one of the jobs that I cherish, and I just hope that I can contribute to VCare's growth again and again. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. De Cruz. I wanted to ask you about COVID to start with. Something about COVID that you would like to share, which would make it easy for us to understand what COVID is.
So basically, Vandana, COVID is an infection. As you know, it's caused by a novel virus called the coronavirus. So CO for corona. So coronavirus disease. That's why it's called COVID, VI virus, and D for, and it's called 2019 because the first cases that came out of China came out towards the end of 2019. So most viruses are named after their genetic makeup, or the disease that they cause, or the year that they came out in. Now, this is distinguished from the SARS virus, which came out in 2003, which was an acute respiratory syndrome virus, severe acute respiratory. And this, and COVID causes more or less the same kind of disease. And that's why it's sometimes known as the SARS-2 virus. So it affects the respiratory tree. It came in from animals, basically the bat, into humans, and it spread by human to human community transmission.
Just yesterday, I got a WhatsApp message saying that the number of deaths last year in April, March, April, were far more than this year. So is this all a big hype about the number of people dying because of COVID, or?
So when you see COVID, the countries that have been really affected are the developed countries. But having said that, we should not underestimate the the impact in our country. We are still on the ascent of the curve, and every time you see in the news every evening, the number of cases that occur every day is much more, and it gives a sense of panic to our population. Yes, the number of cases are increasing, but it's fortunate that the mortality to the number of cases that are infected in our country is much lower than in the developed country. I won't talk about each country specifically, but let's say in the US, in Italy, in these very developed countries, the mortality rate is about 10%. That means if 100 people get infected, about 10% will succumb because of the disease. Fortunately, in our country, the mortality rate is low. It's only about 3%. And yesterday, the Mumbai Municipal Commissioner was on India Today TV, where he said, and I thought it was a very reassuring message that he gave. And probably it's in line with the question that you are, or the comment you have made. Our national mortality is about 2.3%. But so that disparity is not there. But yes, corona will cause deaths. It will cause deaths in elderly people. It will cause deaths in people who have comorbidities, diabetes, hypertension, people who are immunocompromised. And it's something you don't want to do when we are battling other diseases like non-communicable diseases, infective disease. So you're having another 3% of deaths added to the national mortality. So there's something that you need to be careful about, but not hit the panic button. And if you can avoid infection, you probably would be safer, because this is not something that's going to go away. It's going to be with us for the next couple of months, and we have to live with it, and life cannot come to a standstill. So slowly we'll have to come back to normal, both in terms of our personal life, as well as in terms of our medical life.
Okay, so now the biggest question that everybody is coming is like surgery during the COVID times. What does one have to do? What are the precautions? Can infections be taken care of?
So basically, when you look at surgery during COVID times, you have to look at surgery as a big group of procedures. So there's one group of procedures called elective surgeries, cold surgeries. So when I say cold surgeries, they may not be cancer, but there are some cancer surgeries which will be cold surgeries. For example, if you have to have a cataract operation, you have to have a knee replacement. You have been thinking about it for 6 months. Your symptoms are not very acute. You have to get a small hernia fix. You will have to do it, but those are not emergencies. Those are elective surgeries. I would advise everybody who has to undergo an elective procedure, avoid surgery during this time. Hospitals are full, medical resources are stretched. Your surgery is not a priority for you to come in. It's stretching the infrastructure more, plus it's placing you at an increased risk coming into an environment where you can contract the disease. So elective surgeries should be on the back burner, not to be done, and all guidelines say that. Now, having said that, cancer is not elective, because if you don't operate, the cancer will grow. But having said that, there are certain cancers that are very, very slow growing. To give you an example, in my field, some cancers of the thyroid gland, they grow at the rate of 1 to 2 millimeters per year. So if there's someone who has a small nodule in the thyroid, which is 1 centimeter, there is no rush to operate this patient in COVID times till we have a grip on the situation. Same thing in the prostate in males. Very slow growing. Sometimes it's incidentally found. Don't get panicky. Nothing will happen to you in 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks. Sit down at home. Let the situation become okay. Then we'll take a call on what has to be done for you. Now we come to the wide group of cancer surgeries. Most cancer surgeries come into group 2. That means they're semi-emergency. There's an emergency group. Now the emergency group is if you come with bleeding, you come with a fracture, you come with intestinal obstruction because of your cancer. Those have to be operated. So those will be operated. The remaining cancer surgeries, we will triage, and then we will prioritize their various acute severity scales that tell us which ones need to be operated on priority, and we have to operate them. If I tell a patient with a head and neck jaw cancer, wait for 6 months, at the end of 6 months, when I operate him, his stage 1 cancer will become stage 4. Control rate will drop from 90% to 50%, which is unfair. So it's better to take the chance and operate these patients, but the doctor needs to prioritize and operate patients.
Yeah, so just one question that comes to mind is like, you were saying that some of them grow very slowly, like the thyroid you mentioned and all that.
Some thyroid, not all thyroids. There could be a polydifferentiated thyroid that grows very actively. So it's a very well differentiated, certain that the doctor will guide you.
So those which grow slowly, would you have done the surgery in case they came in during the normal times?
Yes, 100%. We would 100% do it.
So now what you're doing is you are delaying that process?
Deferring the surgery because I believe that the wait period will not cause a detrimental effect more than the risk associated with surgery in a highly infective time. So we are weighing the pros and cons. If I deferred a thyroid surgery for 3 months, the success and the living of the patient is still 99% in a differentiated small thyroid cancer. But the chance of getting infected in a hospital environment is higher. That's why I defer. The patient will need surgery. It's not कि पहले हम तो ऐसे ही कर रहे थे surgery, अब COVID आ गई कि नहीं, defer करेंगे हम surgery.
Okay, because that is something which weighs on everybody's mind when they are told कि अभी मत आओ क्योंकि अभी बाद में आना है, तो they feel कि फिर पहले क्यों मतलब कर देते थे हमेशा और अब क्यों delay कर रहे हैं,
So Vandana, in life, as you know, and this is your vocation and you have done so well with your group all these years, very often patients have problems because of lack of communication. Doctors don't spend adequate time with their patients, which they should. And there is where people like you and your organization play a very, very important role to explain patients. I'm not absolving ourselves of explaining, but together as a team, we should explain our patients. Everybody understands, and then everybody accepts if you understand and you talk to them and explain them well.
Okay. So that's really very reassuring, because this is one of the major concerns that many people have. So for an example, like, is there any alternative to surgery during this time? Suppose because of lockdown, because of travel restrictions, because of an inability to find accommodation, they cannot travel to Bombay and they would like to come here. So is there an alternative to surgery?
So there are two things. One, if your surgery is not very complex, fortunately, our country, we have now got a lot of good centers all over the country. So find yourself a good surgeon, a good institution, and have your treatment done there. You don't have to rush all the way to Bombay for simple procedures. For complex procedures, you should come, because in a smaller place, there may not be an expertise to do that. Or if they, as I tell my patients, adhura operation kar diya, baad mein hum log pura nahi kar sakte hain. The best chance for our patient is the first chance. The first bite of the cherry is the sweetest. If we miss the chance, we are compromising our patients. So please do your homework well. In your vicinity, if you have a good surgeon who can do this non-complex procedure, good infrastructure, karwa lo. Now, the second point I want to make, say you have to have a breast operation. Say you have to have a simple neck operation. That doesn't mean you go to a small hospital in a nursing home. The infrastructure of the hospital should be good. They should have negative pressure in the operating rooms. Not only is the patient otherwise at risk, but even the health personnel are at risk. They should have proper PPE gowns. They should be able to safeguard the patient and the patient's relatives. So when you choose your hospital, please choose your hospital correctly. If it's an overcrowded hospital, they don't have much PPE, N95 masks are not there, be a little careful. So the first thing is you go to a hospital within your vicinity if you can't travel, who has the expertise for your surgery and has the infrastructure for your safety and the safety of other persons and your relatives. Now, whether there is an alternative to surgery, in some conditions, yes. I will give you an example from my specialty. When we have a small cancer of the voice box, it's a stage 1, 95% cure rate. We can cure the patient with 2 treatments, radiotherapy for 6 weeks, or I could do a laser surgery. लेजर सर्जरी एक ही दिन में होता है, बेहोश करते हैं, वी पुट एन एंडोस्कोप इन एंड वी रिमूव द ग्रोथ विद द लेजर. कंट्रोल रेट दोनों में सेम है. लेजर में एडवांटेज है दैट आई एम ट्रीटिंग इन 1 day, पेशेंट कैन गो बैक ऑन द नेक्स्ट डे. बट टू डू अ लेजर, I am creating what is known as aerosol generating procedure. That means when I cut, when I'm putting the scope in the oral cavity, the nasopharynx is a hotbed of the coronavirus. So I would like to avoid that. If I don't do laser surgery and call him back after 1 month, stage 1 will become stage 2. His voice will get more affected, control rates will drop. So in that case, I might send the patient for radiotherapy because both have the same control rates. But if I have a jaw tumor that's eaten into the jaw, the surgery is surgery. I cannot give radiotherapy. If I operate a patient when the bone is eaten, my success rate says between 50 to 70%. If I give radiotherapy, the success rate is less than 20%. So the differential is 30 to 50%, which is much higher than the risk of contracting coronavirus. And that's why we will continue to operate. I hope I've not oversimplified it, but I'm just giving numbers to drive my point home. So in some cases, there may be an alternative, but usually where surgery scores in terms of survival advantage, there is no compromise and you have to do surgery.
Okay, so that brings me to the next question about telemedicine. Because if there are doctors who want to come here for take teleconsultations, would you be, because like everybody knows that Dr. D'Cruz is the best as far as head and neck cancer is concerned. But suppose I cannot come to Dr. D'Cruz. So if I call you up, would you be able to suggest somebody to me in at least the major towns or better centers?
So the first thing, teleconsultation is something that was there. It has increased in large numbers during coronavirus time, and it is going to be something that is going to stay. We are going to now. So today, at the Apollo, I have done 3 of my patients on teleconsultations, 2 follow-up and 1 new case. So they register, they come online, they show me their reports, which is already pre-screened and loaded onto a program where I've studied everything. I see the patient in front of me. I see the general condition. If the lesion is something that I can see, I tell him, मुंह खोलो, जबान बाहर करो, थोड़ी सी idea हो जाती है. And then I'm able to guide him what has to be done. So when he tells me कि हमारे डॉक्टर ने बोला है कि you do पहले chemotherapy, looking at the reports, examining the patients across on a teleconsultation, with more than 80-90% certainty, I'm able to tell them कि हाँ आपकी ट्रीटमेंट ठीक है, आप प्लीज जाके यही करिए. हमको डाउट होगी तो फिर हम बोलेंगे कि आप वाराणसी में हो, BHU में दिखाइए, आप कानपुर में हो, JK में जाइए, आप लखनऊ में हो, आप किंग जॉर्जेस में जाइए. अब हमारे I was in Tata's for very long. and I was in leadership positions at many national meetings. तो ज्यादातर हमको हर एक जगह में जानकारी है कि कौन लोग कैंसर करते हैं and what quality. तो I will give them 3-4 names and I will tell them कि यहाँ जाके मिल लो, and then they will go and see that doctor and give us the opinion. So teleconsultations are there and we are able to guide people.
So just like you are able to guide about teleconsultation for head and neck cancers, can you do the same for other, I mean, the other doctors can do the same for their field, like breast cancer, lung cancer?
Why not, Vandana? I am an oncologist. मैं क्या, why head and neck? मैं तो आपको गाइड कर सकता हूँ कि लिम्फोमा में कौन अच्छा है. हमको इतनी जानकारी है. We are in the field for 30 years. So it's not that we were only treating Oz. I'm a surgical oncologist by training. कल आप हमसे पूछोगे कि हमारे पेशेंट ब्रेस्ट कैंसर दिल्ली में हैं, मैं आपको 10 नाम दूंगा दिल्ली में. So they can choose in.
Yeah, that's nice and very reassuring to know.
And plus with the Apollo group, I am the director of oncology. So I practice at 3 places, but I kind of have a knowledge of across our 70 networks what is happening. Similarly, I know what's happening in the DAE group of hospitals because I was with the Tatas for so long. So I know people in the field. It's not about anything but guiding a patient correctly.
Just, I mean, I know it's little off the thing, पर आजकल ये home infusion के लिए बहुत बात हो रही है, especially chemotherapy के लिए. Is it something advisable? Would you go for it? Would you suggest people to take chemotherapy at home?
So you see, sometime it may be possible. Let me answer this question a little differently. I won't only talk on home therapy, infusion therapy at home. For many treatments, today people are able to do it at home. To give you an example, if we do a complicated resection of the lung, when I was a student, we used to keep the patient in the hospital for 10 days. कि complication हो जाएगी, घर भेजोगे. आजकल विदेश में 48 hours में discharge करते हैं. हम लोग थायराइड करते थे जब हम स्टूडेंट थे, 7-10 दिन रखते थे हॉस्पिटल में. आज अगले दिन लौटाते हैं. ब्रेस्ट कैंसर में भी अगले दिन लौटाते हैं हम पेशेंट को. बट एट द सेम टाइम वी डोंट पुश एवरीबॉडी आउट. We push people who have an infrastructure. When they go back to, there will be no complications. So exactly the same with home therapy. What applies to your home may not be in my home. अब आपकी घर बहुत आलीशान है, आपके तो मैं आपके घर आया हूँ, 6 बेडरूम वाली बड़ी घर है आपकी, आप वहां पे अपनी कीमोथेरेपी आनंद से ले सकते हो. अदर पीपल कैन कम, आपकी पूरी फैमिली सपोर्ट है. आप कहीं, मैं कहीं सड़क के किनारे रुका हूं तो देन जनरलाइज नहीं कर सकते हैं. तो यू विल हैव टू टेक ईच केस ऑन इट्स मेरिट, एंड यस, इफ इट इज सेफ यू कैन डू एनीथिंग एट होम. व्हाई नॉट?
Okay. So I just want to know, like in surgery, when a patient comes to the hospital, what are the processes that you do to make the whole system infection free? Like from the time he enters to the time he comes to you, to the time he goes to the theater, and then the ward and everything.
So I can tell you the system we have put in place at the Apollo, but I guess this system is applicable to every institution. So I first want to make some general comments. If I operate on a patient who is COVID positive, कल आप आए हमारे पास, हमने आपकी सर्जरी की और आप कोविड पॉजिटिव हो, and I have no जानकारी about this, the risk of mortality means death, could be as high as 20% if you get manifested during the post-op. So both the patient and the doctor has a role. So मैं अपने patients को क्या बोलता हूँ, first the hospital triages the patient outside. उनकी पूरी history लेंगे. Have you been in contact with anybody in COVID? Have you traveled? आजकल तो travel banned है, but पहले हम लोग पूछते थे. I had a very senior man who came to me from Dubai. So I know Dubai was a hotbed, so we did not operate. Foreign travel history है. So first thing, we take a detailed history. We do an examination for temperature, for respiratory symptoms, any breathing difficulty. Then we triage patients into what is going to happen and we take them into the hospital. Now I explain all my patients that there's an incubation period. हमने तुरंत COVID testing कर दी, and if you're in the first day of infectivity, it may show negative. It might become positive on the 5th to 7th day. So while I'm working up the patient, taking all precautions, I explain the patient, आपकी risk है, आप surgery कराओगे, if you're like COVID positive, be in home quarantine and look after yourself and ask your relatives also not to go out. Not that you don't go, your relative doesn't go to the mandi and bring the COVID into you and give it to you. Patients have self-preservation, they follow my advice well. 1 or 2 days before surgery, we will do the COVID testing. So 5 दिन 7 दिन home quarantine में है, फिर हम COVID testing करते हैं. 7 दिन हो गई, maximum infectivity इसी period में है. Of course, you can have infection even after 21 days. But maximum infectivity is over. So I have triaged patients and made them at a lower risk of having COVID. Still, when we operate, we will always use PPE, personal protection equipment, so that we are not at risk and our other staff are not at risk. I always insist as well, you are very safe when he or she is attending to you. बाकी हम अपने हॉस्पिटल में, and every hospital takes protections like negative pressure, personal protective equipment, when giving anesthesia and intubating. So there's a separate box that we use so that there's no aerosol generation. If we are doing an endoscopy, हम लोग देखते नहीं हैं, हम लोग screen पे देखते हैं, so that there's at least 6 feet between us and the patient. Those are technical things which I'm not sure the audience that is listening to us today would be interested in.
पर जैसे एक चीज सबको है कि कि कोविड जो है वो मिडल सर्फेसेस पे और ये सब पे बहुत देर तक रहता है, तो is the operation theater cleaned?
Of course, that we do for everybody. वंदना, सुनो, मैं आपको बहुत जनरल बता रहा हूँ. COVID is transmitted by 2 ways. The first way is droplet infection. When you sneeze, when you cough, and to some extent when you talk. To me, that is the most important form of giving the disease. If droplet infection is prevented, 90 to 95% of COVID will not be there. The second is fomite. Fomite means surface से. अब आप देखो कि मैंने छींका, my saliva comes to the table, गीला है वहां पे 3-4 घंटे के लिए, आप आए वहां पे, आपने वहां देख के रगड़ा अपने हाथ और फिर आपने अपने नाक पे लगा ली, तब जाके आपको होगी. उसकी पॉसिबिलिटी बहुत लो है. ड्रॉपलेट इन्फेक्शन से साफ रहो. ऑफ कोर्स, if you go to the market, you touch some infected things, when you come back, wash your hand first before touching everything. Don't rub your eyes if you have touched some things. Operation theater before COVID and even after COVID between patients is absolutely cleaned down. The tables are wiped. Now in certain hospitals, which are government hospitals, where they do minor operative procedures and they are turning over very rapidly, then there is a theoretical risk if they don't use proper sterilization methods. So that's why I'm telling the audience, I'm telling you as an advisor, please, please, please check that your hospital has the infrastructure to look after your safety and then only go for treatment there.
Okay. So now, one more thing that, people who've got a voice box or a food pipe and यहाँ से होके चले गए हैं और naturally बार-बार आपसे नहीं मिलने आ सकते. So a set of procedures that you might like to tell them, या breast cancer की surgery हुई है लेकिन अभी तक वो पूरा निकला नहीं है ट्यूब वगैरह, तो वैसे उन सब चीजों में कोई special precautions लेने?
So in what way? Like the breast cancer drainage tube? Is that what you're
Yeah,
asking?
yeah. So any tube, because like normally पहले drainage tube के बाद people would stay over, but
हाँ जी.
now because they're not staying over, they may be going or they may be staying at home or a guest house or something like that.
Oh, but earlier also we used to send patients back to the guest house with the drainage tube. If we operated a breast cancer, the fluid can come out for a week or 10 days. We didn't keep them in the hospital for a week or 10 days. We would send them back home with the same precaution. We would send them. So I don't think, but yes, like if you have got a tracheostomy, then each time the person coughs, there is high aerosol generation. It comes into the air. So there we are very particular that you use a bib. Now, if a tracheostomy is a procedure, in the last week of March and the first few weeks of April, we were not doing those kind of procedures. We were trying to avoid it unless it was an emergency and the person could not breathe. Then we would do it again, taking the full precautions. So it is not, so wherever there's an aerosol generating procedure, we try to be little careful. Again, when this is technical, it's not for this audience, but instead of when we are using the cautery or we are doing a laparoscopy or we are doing something which generates too much of aerosol, if there's any other method by which we can do it, which is safer and decrease the time of surgery, we would opt for that method. Like I may not do what is known as a marginal mandible, taking out a rim of the bone. I might do technically what is known as mucoperiosteal stripping, which does not cut bone and does not generate aerosol. When you're putting the drill, वो सब उड़ती है ना, blood droplets ये वो, तो हम वो नहीं करना चाहते हैं. फिर हम precaution लेते हैं. We put a plastic tarpaulin kind of sheet over it. We work under it so that the aerosol is caught below. We have a visor, we have our glasses, we have an N95, we have another mask, we have our PPE suits that we do. The people in the operating room who are not required at that time, we tell them, bahar khade raho, abhi aerosol procedure hai. Only that is our technicalities, how we are protecting our staff.
Okay. So which means you are taking adequate care during surgeries?
100%. The only problem about all this is whenever we use PPE, we use all these N95 masks, it adds to costs. And the costs finally are borne by someone. Either it's borne by the patient or it's borne by the government or it's borne by someone. So it'll add to the costs of our treatment. We have to be safe for our patient. I get a deja vu about HIV. About 20 years back in the 1980s, longer, 30 years back, when HIV was exactly the same scare. Patients will be in the infective phase. We will not know by the test. There was a lot of hue and cry. What equipment should we use? Universal precautions here. We have started to live with HIV. We take precautions. We look after ourselves. We look after our staff. And we see that it is not transmitted to each other. In HIV at that time, there was no cure as well once you got it, and the taboo of how you got it. So exactly the same is going to happen now with the corona. We'll have to look after ourselves. This is going to be there for some time. I might be very careful in March, April, May, and June, and then I drop my guard in July and I might pick up the infection. So till this totally goes, we'll have to be very protective.
Okay, so there is one person who has said that they have had chemotherapy at Tata Memorial Hospital and now they are in Jabalpur and for breast cancer. So would you be able to give one or two names for somebody in Jabalpur?
हमारी ये है ना टाटा हॉस्पिटल ट्रेंड रोशनी. Roshni is there. Roshni, she used to be Roshni Bhagwat. She is in Jabalpur. आप उनसे मिलिए. वो जबलपुर कैंसर हॉस्पिटल में जाती है. उनका खुद का हॉस्पिटल भी है. You can meet her. I will forward you her number. मैं देखता हूँ अपने इसी फोन पे होगी तो मैं आपको तुरंत देता हूँ. Sure, you can go to Roshni. There'll be lot of people. आप एक काम कीजिए, जो आपके यहाँ के डॉक्टर है टाटा हॉस्पिटल में, you are most welcome to ask them. Generally उनके कोई स्टूडेंट वहां होंगे, उनका संबंध ठीक होगा. But Roshni is Tata trained, so there's absolutely no problem, and I'm sure you'll be able to find, you'll be able to If you want the number and if it's correct, I can give it to you now if you are comfortable taking it.
No, I'll take it. You can send it to me on my thing. I don't want to put it here on the
Okay.
this thing for everybody to know about it. Now, there's one more question. What is the role of the caregivers in this?
So caregivers means as in who?
The family caregivers.
In what? In this chemotherapy or in COVID? Can you make your question?
Suppose somebody has just had a surgery just before the lockdown period and is gone, or if there is a possibility that somebody may have to have a surgery and the patient has to be taken care till such time the chemo or the surgery actually happens. In that case, what happens?
So let me just tell you that. As I said, everybody is bothered about the patient, and rightly so, that the patient should be COVID negative, because if the patient is COVID positive, there's an increased risk of complications and death of surgery. Plus, that infected patient will infect the staff, and all those patients will have to be quarantined, and various other problems if they are not using their PPE equipment, and various other technical problems. But as I said, the caregiver is equally important. So when the patient is in home quarantine getting investigated, if the patient's relative is moving all over the place and contracts the disease and is then going to look after this patient, the probability of transmitting it to the patient is very, very high. So you have an equal responsibility to protect your patient. That the caregiver has to protect that he or she doesn't get the disease and transmit it to the hospital staff or to their relative who's a patient. The second thing, don't have multiple caregivers in your care. If you can have one or two people who are quarantined properly, staying with you, looking after you, it's much better than having your whole khandan coming to you, someone who might bring the infection from outside. Apart from that, you take the general precautions. When required, don't be close to the patient. Social distancing, have the same tenements of washing your hands very, very often before you touch the patient, after you touch the patient. And if the patient has anything like a tracheostomy tube or head and neck patients where they're coughing, saliva is coming out, which could be infected, put on a glove, use the right precautions. आपको भी ना हो और आप अपनी disease को फैला भी, you should not even allow it to spread within the community.
So okay. Now one more question that I want to ask is, many people are saying that it's again something which we've been hearing, that now with the 3 months have taught us a lot of things, and maybe we should change our way of treatments and all that. So do you think that 3 months or 4 months will be enough to have evidence to say that, this is what we were doing, which should not be done now?
Say that again, which was before the pre-COVID area?
Yeah, pre-COVID area, whatever, like suppose a treatment plan for radiation, for example, now the number of cycles are being reduced. Similarly for chemotherapy and all that. So if, do you think this is going to be the pattern forever now?
नहीं. So like जैसे श्याम श्रीवास्तव ने बोली होगी आपको कि that we are reducing the number of fractions of radiotherapy. Now when you are doing treatment, there are various methods by which either, just for simplicity's sake, you can give 6,000 rads in 30 fractions, which may be equivalent to giving, that means you're giving 200 per day per fraction. It may be the same as given 333 in 15 fractions. That means you raise the dose and decrease the treatment time to prevent infection. Now, in some places, this is well proven. But in the majority of places, it may not be well proven. So unless we have scientific evidence that the cure rates are the same and the complications are not very different, then it will come into place. I'm going to draw an analogy from outside the medical field. Earlier, only 3% of education was done online worldwide. 3%. Today, it is 99% that is worldwide. Harvard Business School, the first semester for the course starting in fall is going to be online. No one would have thought of this 6 months back. To my understanding, the sweet number or the sweet thing will be in between the two. It will not be all online because there's peer-to-peer learning, interacting network. It cannot be 3%, it cannot be 99%, but it will be 20%, 25%, the rest will be conventional. The same will happen in medicine. The same will happen in offices. Today, all of us work from home. I'm sure offices will downsize. Many of the employees will be asked work from home. They will cut down on office space and decrease their losses. Initially, they'll do it to make up this big loss that they've had. And later, they might find that it's a winning proposition. And the same thing, which I would call is serendipity. Sometimes these adversities make you treat differently and you learn something new and it may come. But it will have to be scientifically proven to become standard of care.
Okay, so there's one more question which has come in, which says, is thyroid cancer surgery very invasive?
No, generally, it depends on the stage of thyroid cancer, but it's not invasive, not very invasive. It is invasive. When you cut into someone's neck, it is invasive. But I will answer it in a different way. If God came to you in a dream and said कि आपको तो कैंसर होना ही है, आप एक कैंसर चुनिए, आप बोलिए कि मुझे well differentiated thyroid cancer चाहिए. Because as I told you, it grows at 1 to 2 millimeters per year and we can cure 99% of our patients. But then you should tell God, मेरी भी एक request है, मुझे एक अच्छा surgeon देना. Because though you will be cured, there are important structures near the thyroid. The main nerves that supply a voice box and allow you to speak, and दो छोटी ग्रंथि है जिसे हम पैराथायरॉइड्स बोलते हैं. पैराथायरॉइड नेक्स्ट टू थायराइड दैट कंट्रोल द कैल्शियम ऑफ योर बॉडी. अब आपने सर्जरी कहीं से कराई, जिन द डॉक्टर डज नॉट हैव जानकारी ऑफ द पैराथायरॉइड्स, आपकी ये दो छोटी पैराथायरॉइड ग्लैंड हटा दी. These are the size of a pinhead. Then for life, you will take 10 to 12 tablets of calcium. So in a way, it is invasive in that the complications can be there. But if it is well done, you are okay, you're eating, talking, and can be discharged the next morning. So it is then not so invasive as doing some major abdominal surgery, jahan 5-7 din ki drip lagegi. That all will not be there. So from a complication point of view, it may be invasive or technically challenging. From the body point of view, if done well, it's not as invasive as, say, removing the pancreas or removing the total stomach or the total rectum. Those are more invasive.
So, इसके साथ ही एक और question है. Total thyroidectomy was done in July 2017. Diagnosis was papillary carcinoma. Nuclear scans were done post-surgery. Currently, no symptoms. Last scan was done 20 months back. Is repeat scan recommended? How often one should get such scans? And actually, scan was planned for May 20th, but currently postponed.
देखो, I need more information. हमको आपके केस के बारे में और जानकारी चाहिए to give you a definite opinion. Because आपकी क्या स्टेज थी, आपकी क्या खराब फैक्टर्स थी. हम लोग थायराइड कैंसर को थ्री लार्ज बकेट्स में डालते हैं: लो, इंटरमीडिएट एंड हाई रिस्क. अब आपकी हाई रिस्क होगी, फिर तो रिपीट स्कैन की जरूरत जरूर पड़ेगी. बट हम आपको एक चीज बताना चाहते हैं, पहले हम हर एक लोग की स्कैन करते थे. अब हमने स्कैन की डिपेंडेंस कम कर दी है. अच्छा अल्ट्रासाउंड और सीरम थायरोग्लोबुलिन की ब्लड टेस्ट करेंगे, दोनों नॉर्मल होगी आपको इतनी जल्दी अपने हॉस्पिटल भागने की जरूरत नहीं है जहां कोविड के पेशेंट्स हैं, आप खुद खतरा उठाएंगे, नॉट रिक्वायर्ड। बट रियली वो आपकी इंडिविजुअल रिपोर्ट पे, लास्ट जो आपकी स्कैन हुई थी 20 महीने पहले, उसमें लंग में हॉटस्पॉट्स थे कि नहीं थे, आपकी थायरोग्लोबुलिन क्या थी, वो सब जानकारी के साथ ही मैं आपको डेफिनेट ओपिनियन दे सकता हूँ। बट मैं आपको एक चीज फिर दोहरा के बता रहा हूँ कि थायराइड में परेशानी की कोई बात नहीं है। आपकी पेपिलरी थायराइड कैंसर थी, वो डिफरेंशिएटेड थायराइड कैंसर है। आप अपनी जगह पे एक अल्ट्रासाउंड कराइए, एक सीरम थायरोग्लोबुलिन कराइए, दोनों रिपोर्ट नॉर्मल होगी। 1-2 महीने रुकने में आपको कोई नुकसान नहीं होगा। आप अपने डॉक्टर जो आपके न्यूक्लियर स्कैन कर रहे हैं उनको लिख लीजिए और उनको बताइए कि मेरी थायरोग्लोबुलिन नॉर्मल है, मेरी अल्ट्रासाउंड नॉर्मल है, मैं 2 महीने बाद आऊंगा, और डॉक्टर बिल्कुल मना नहीं करेंगे आपको।
There is another question from a patient. It says, what is the limit of cumulative radioactive iodine, and can thyroid carcinoma happen in pediatrics? And thyroglobulin of 5 of thyroxine treatment normal?
अरे ये तो हमारे डॉक्टर भी इतने क्वेश्चन नहीं पूछते हमसे। अच्छा,
आपने कहा था ना आपका एग्जाम होएगा।
हाँ, नहीं तो so just tell me again, just there were 3 questions in one.
See,
So
one
you
is
tell
the
me.
limit of cumulative radioactive iodine.
हाँ, so generally हम लोग 600 मिली क्यूरीज हो गई आपकी, कोई लोग 1 क्यूरी तक देखते हैं, बट 600 मिली क्यूरीज के बाद में हम मानने लगते हैं कि आपकी डिजीज रेडियो आयोडीन रिफ्रैक्टरी डिजीज है। So technically we go up to 1 curie, but after 600 we become little slow और हम कम देते हैं। इसलिए कि हम जितनी ज्यादा आपको रेडियो आयोडीन देगी उसमें रेडिएशन है, थोड़ी सी उसमें सेकंड कैंसर का खतरा लेता है। तो जनरली 600 मिली क्यूरीज तो 1 क्यूरी इज द डोज। सेकंड क्वेश्चन बताइए।
सेकंड था कि डज इट हैपन इन पीडियाट्रिक्स?
हाँ, बच्चों में होती है थायराइड कैंसर। इफ एनी चाइल्ड हैज अ थायराइड नोड्यूल, there is a 50% chance that it will be cancerous. If any adult has a thyroid cancer, a thyroid nodule, the chances of cancer is less than 5%. So remember, in children, a nodule is more likely to have cancer than in an adult patient. जनरली बच्चों को क्यों होता है हमको मालूम नहीं है। लास्ट वीक ही हमने अपोलो में 2 बच्चों की ऑपरेशन की थी, एक 9 महीने और एक 13 साल का बच्चा। बट हमको ये मालूम है कि चिल्ड्रन हु वर एट द एज ऑफ न्यूक्लियर फॉलआउट, जैसे चेरनोबियल में न्यूक्लियर फॉलआउट हुई थी, हिरोशिमा नागासाकी में 1945 में एटम बॉम्ब गिरी थी, वहां फॉलआउट हुई थी, उन बच्चों को बहुत हाई रिस्क होता है। बट हाँ, बच्चों में थायराइड कैंसर हो सकता है। It is seen, and like I said, 50% of children who have thyroid nodules will have thyroid cancer. But the cure rates are very, very high. Anybody less than 55 age with thyroid cancer, which is papillary, have a better prognosis than those who are above 55.
और तीसरा क्वेश्चन था थायरोग्लोबुलिन ऑफ 5 ऑफ थायरोक्सिन ट्रीटमेंट नॉर्मल।
तो जनरली जो हम लोग थायरोग्लोबुलिन नापते हैं, 2 किस्म से नापा जाता है, एक स्टिम्युलेटेड, एक अनस्टिम्युलेटेड। स्टिम्युलेटेड मींस व्हेन द पेशेंट इज ऑफ थायराइड हार्मोन या एल्ट्रोक्सिन, दैट इज मोर एक्यूरेट than if you do an unstimulated, that is when the patient is on eltroxin. Up 5 is quite high, but हमारे देश में बहुत थायरोग्लोबुलिन की टेस्ट is not the 3rd generation test. बहुत laboratories, even in Delhi, Bombay, major cities don't do the 3rd generation test. So I need to see the report, know what is the reference range in that lab and what technique has been used before I tell whether 5 is high or no. So many good laboratories have a normal range of 5 to 45. आप normal range पढ़िए उसमें. They are not using ultra sensitive third generation examinations. But generally more than one is very suspicious if you are using a third generation test. But at the same time, we don't always go treat a patient by thyroglobulin reports. We look at thyroglobulin antibodies. We look at whether the ultrasound shows any structural. So plain thyroglobulin elevated, please don't worry. It can be elevated and nothing may happen to you for another 15 years. So please don't get panicky. Talk to your doctor and see all reports.
There's one more question which has come. Okay, to continue with the thyroid one, is it hereditary?
Yeah, some thyroid cancers are hereditary. Thyroid cancer दो किस्म के broadly होते हैं. एक differentiated and second is medullary thyroid cancer. Medullary thyroid cancer 20% hereditary, very strong family history, and other endocrine organs may be affected, such as the adrenal glands, the parathyroids. They all, it's called multiple endocrine neoplasia syndrome. In differentiated thyroid cancer, that is papillary and follicular, some of them are hereditary, but the chances will be less than 5. The same cancer can occur, or it could be part of a syndrome. There are certain syndromes like Carney's complex, Cowden syndrome, जिसमें यहाँ body पे थोड़ी सी swellings होती है. उन लोगों में thyroid cancer common होती है. या thyroid cancer, breast cancer की association describe की है. But generally differentiated thyroid cancer में जब हम लोग history लेते हैं, chances of the hereditary component is 5%, medullary में 20% है. But yes, it can be hereditary.
Okay, there's one question. With the government saying no to elective surgeries in recent times, isn't cancer surgery a priority surgery, if not an emergency surgery? Shouldn't there be a change in the status of cancer surgery as an immediate life-saving procedure?
Bilkul, I think maybe the person who asking this question was not there when we started. ये तो हमारी opening remark थी.
Yeah.
The elective surgery is जैसे आप elective cataract करा रहे हो और आप elective knee replacement करा रहे हो, that can wait for 3 to 6 months, कोई problem नहीं है, उसको elective बोलेंगे. Cancer is not elective, it's a semi-emergency. It comes into category 2 of surgery. It is not category 1, which is emergency, like when you come with bleeding or you come with an accident. But yes, you have to operate. तो गवर्नमेंट में मना नहीं किया कि हम कैंसर सर्जरी नहीं कर सकते, बट गवर्नमेंट ने हमको बताया है कि आप अपनी जजमेंट यूज करिए कि कैंसर में भी अलग अलग प्रायोरिटी है. हम लोग अपने मेडिकल टर्म में ट्रायाज बोलते हैं, तो हम लोग ट्रायाज करेंगे. फास्ट ग्रोइंग कैंसर होगी तो हम जरूर उसको ऑपरेट करेंगे, बट कैंसर स्लो ग्रोइंग होगी जैसे थायराइड या प्रोस्टेट जो हमने पहले बताया था, उसको हम 2 महीने बाद करेंगे उनकी सर्जरी. हम उनको प्रायोरिटी में नहीं करेंगे.
So आपने क्योंकि कहा कि you can deal with breast cancer and lymphomas and everything, there's a question which says, I had grade ER, VEG, PGR negative.
हाँ जी.
HER2 3+ invasive ductal carcinoma breast.
हाँ जी.
Have been evaluated for pathogenic variations in genes.
हाँ.
But no pathogens or likely pathogenic variant causative of reported phenotype were detected. 16th August 2019.
हाँ जी.
Right breast mastectomy with right axilla with right apex, right interpectoral and right supraclavicular clearance at Tata in 2014. Post SMAC plus SCFC post LLRT taken maintenance dose of
trastuzumab. हाँ, Herceptin. बताइए फिर.
Last mammogram done in February 20 at Tata was normal. I'm a lecturer, researcher and homemaker. Kindly advise anything specific.
कुछ नहीं, बहुत आप टाटा हॉस्पिटल में हो, बहुत मशहूर हॉस्पिटल है. आपका डॉक्टर कौन है? Who's your doctor?
She hasn't written that on that.
अच्छा, But nothing to worry. I'm not going to look at very specific reports. I'm sure that they will guide her accordingly. Everything will be okay. Her reports will need to be evaluated in more detail. But as I tell all my patients, place your trust in your doctor. If your doctor has told you everything is okay, you please relax. And why should you get tense and take 20 opinions? There's
Okay.
absolutely nothing. I think you have had the full treatment and you should be happy.
So, Dr. D'Cruz, now with 31st May coming, when we have the World No Tobacco Day, uh, is, is there any message, anything that you would like to specifically say about it? It's a good opportunity. The time is right, according to me, because everybody, I mean,
You
I
are,
thought 3 months people would give up smoking and drinking and everything, but you are the better judge to say those
I
things.
don't know when they opened the alcohol shops for 6 hours. यहाँ तो stampede हो गई थी दुकानों में और government ने
Yeah.
tax भी बढ़ा दी. But anyway, please let me tell you what I started with. COVID is here to stay for a couple of months. It is not that because COVID is there, everything else will come to a standstill. Economy will slow down, but other diseases will be there. The cancer will be there, and other things will be there. And people who take tobacco, the risk of tobacco will continue to be there. In fact, I'm scared in times of lockdown with people having nothing to do, whether they'll smoke more, whether they will drink more. But quickly to tell you that one of the biggest harmful carcinogenic substances that causes close to 18% of all cancers worldwide, even more, is tobacco. It's responsible, lung cancer is responsible for close to 11% of all deaths worldwide. And that is predominantly because of tobacco. Head and neck cancers, which I treat, which are 1/3 of cancers in this country, about 30%, 90% of them are because of tobacco. So I want to leave with a very strong message that tobacco is an absolute no. हमारे देश में लोग तंबाकू socially accept करते हैं. They may not drink, but they will chew tobacco. We smoke tobacco, we chew tobacco, we apply tobacco to our gums and we inhale tobacco. All four forms हानिकारक है, and all four forms in any dose can cause cancer if you are susceptible. So WHO, to make this menace of cancer be known to all people, every year celebrates what is known as World No Tobacco Day, and it is celebrated on 31st of May. And every year we have a theme. Like one year it was dispelling myths on tobacco. One year it was tobacco and sports, like that. So this year the theme is protecting youth from industry manipulation and preventing them from the harmful use of tobacco and nicotine. And why did WHO choose this? Because the industry is very cleverly positioning to target youth. So they're now targeting for the sales of tobacco a new and susceptible group of individuals. If you do not take to tobacco by the age of 19 or 20, it's unlikely that you will take to tobacco in the rest of your life. So which of us are habituated usually take to tobacco in our teens or early 20s. So if we can avoid the habit in those people, people will not take tobacco. So now the industry is very cleverly targeting this youth group. So they are bringing attractive products. They are having cherry gum, which is tobacco in a cherry flavor. It looks attractive to people. They are designing new products like the e-cigarette in the form of a USB stick, which is again becoming attractive to people. They are positioning tobacco products next to products that youth will go and buy in the supermarkets, again, so that a youth will get attracted towards that. So we call this as clever positioning. They're getting celebrity endorsement of their products. So they're doing all these kind of things to attract youth. And this time, WHO's message to people like VK, message to people like us in UICST, is to make our youth aware that they are being manipulated by clever marketing strategies of the tobacco industry to use products that are harmful to their health. So I would stay off tobacco. Tobacco in any form and any dose is harmful. I have patients who say हम तो एक सिगरेट पिए, but उनको हो गई. कोई लोग 80 पिए, उनको नहीं हुई. But हम ये जानते हैं कि हमारे 90% पेशेंट जो हमारे पास आते हैं, they are tobacco users.
On a lighter note, somebody has written here that my neighbor stacked up more cigarettes than food as the couple, both the people smoke. So, okay, now from VK's perspective, or any voluntary organization's perspective, what should be our focus during COVID and post-COVID for patient? Service needs are so many, like medicines, accommodation, personal care, multiple challenges. So what, according to you, should be the most important patient need, or the order, the priority wise, so that, all of us who are NGOs can work on that?
So very difficult question to answer. I cannot prioritize 1, 2, 3, 4. All I can tell you is that civil society, people like you, people like VCare have a very, very important role in this, in cancer care, in control, in support of patients, and only doctors, only healthcare structures, not only in our country, even in the developed countries, are taxed and not able to do that. I will give you 2 or 3 guiding principles. There are many NGOs in the space. Please do not duplicate efforts. So if you are looking at nutrition or you are looking at shelter, let someone else look at medicines. Let someone else look at psychological support. You see, the people who need our support is very large. If all of us try to duplicate, we will waste resource. So I would tell you, as the VCare founder, as someone who is on the board and plays a very active role and is passionate, you should find out that I'm going to these 10 hospitals. इसमें ये कमी है इस हॉस्पिटल में, आपको वो सपोर्ट देनी चाहिए. एक प्रिस्क्रिप्शन नहीं है कि मैं आपको बोलूंगा कि पैसे दो सबको या सबको सब्सिडाइज्ड ड्रग्स दो. Some people might have everything. They might be insurance covered, but they don't have psychological support. Those are the people who will need a different support from you as opposed to some other patient. So I would say needs vary. Don't duplicate efforts amongst NGO. Prioritize according to the need of the hospital and the infrastructure, and then take your support forward. But if you ask me, patients who come to Bombay, they need accommodation, they need proper guidance on where they are going to go. And most people in our country are unable to afford treatment, so they need some sort of support in that. But also there are other people, there are other problems, like there's something known as a bereavement fund. If someone dies in a hospital, sometimes they're so poor, they don't have money to take the body back, which is such a very sensitive. So there are people who support that kind of an activity. So you'll have to triage, Vandan. I can't just tell you ki priority mein ye 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
No, I think it was, the question was more related to post-COVID. What do you think? Because now all the patients are struck. They're stranded. They've spent a lot of money. Many of them have left jobs and everything. So that is, I think that is one of the biggest concerns that most NGOs will have in dealing with the patients. So
yeah. So we'll have to help them. Many of them will. You're absolutely true. If they don't have jobs coming for care, but I would say tackle it by proper education. Help them with early diagnosis to come. In those that you, this no tobacco day, you should try to do that. So you prioritize, and it's a multi-pronged thing. Post-COVID, the cancer treatment will continue the same as before with the restrictions that you have said because of the impact of economy by COVID. And we'll all have to battle that together.
So, Dr. D'Cruz, one last question. As UICC president-elect, I know you have some...
एक मिनट वंदना, my this thing is gone.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you speak now? Maybe I can hear you. I don't.
Can you hear me?
Bolo.
Can you hear me now?
Now I can hear you. My battery failed.
Yeah, I thought as much. As the UICC president-elect, what are your thoughts on the meetings? Because I know the meeting in October has been postponed. So I don't know whether it's like going to be postponed or whether it'll really happen or whether it'll again go back to being on the Zoom or
something. Let me tell you, it's not only on UICC. I'll be able to tell you something. Some things we are still negotiating, so they are not in public space. But yes, the October meeting has been postponed. Initially, we had postponed it till March. But probably the decision will be made that even March will be a problem because, as you know, UICC has a World Cancer Congress and many countries, we don't know on which part of the curve they are. If the number of cases are increasing, Oman, where it is, may not allow people to come, say, from a particular region. Say they say Southeast Asia is not allowed, Africa is not allowed because COVID is still a problem there. We are not going to have a World Cancer Congress where big areas are not going to be represented. So as I see, and I sit out at the American Head and Neck Board, we have that. I sit out at the Asian Head and Neck Board, the Thyroid Asian Society. All meetings for the next 6 to 8 months have been postponed. The ASCO meeting, which is the biggest oncology meeting going on now, is virtual. And I think in future, what we are going to have is a combination of face-to-face and virtual meetings. But for the time being, many of our meetings are going to be virtual. And at present, the October meeting of the World Cancer Congress has been postponed. There are many things that we are discussing. We just had a board meeting virtually yesterday, and we are looking at whether we should push it back beyond March, whether we should just cancel it this time and go to 2022. So we've got a World Leaders Summit in Boston in 2021. So all those are still going on. And there's some things which we cannot let into public domain because there are many people who have bid. And so I will not be able to share all the nitty-gritties. But yes, the October meeting is off.
No, so what I wanted to ask is that do you think the learning will be compromised in some way because it is virtual? Because it was not only the meeting, it was also interaction with each other, talking to each other.
So, Vandana, that is a debate on every news channel now about education. That yes, education, a large part will be virtual, but classroom teaching where you have face-to-face contacts, peer-to-peer learning, identifying strengths and weaknesses of students will never be the same if you do it virtually. And that's exactly the same as when you are speaking. Now I'm saying that if I had to give this webinar in front of all people who are now online and I can see their face, I can see them attentively, the way I speak, my responses get better. People who can see each other are more stimulated to ask questions. So that will always be lacking if you do it virtually. The scientific substance I can deliver, but the impact, whether it is exactly the same, only time will tell. So to me, I'm a proponent of face-to-face, but I really believe now that COVID has come, we'll have to have a hybrid somewhere in between. So a part of it. So a top in the US may be a leader in the field. We might all get together in India. He may not want to travel because he's more than 70, but a leader in the field. He probably deliver his keynote via the satellite and we'll all listen to it and someone will moderate. So there will be changes.
Thank you, Dr. D'Cruz. Saran, can you please unmute everybody so that if there are questions that people have to ask? And Jyoti, can you just see on the Facebook page if there are more questions which I missed out? Everybody who wants to ask a question, just put up your hand so that we can unmute you and then you can ask your question. Anybody has a question? I think Dr. D'Cruz, you really explained very well.
Yeah.
I think the ringmaster was tough, so I had to talk. क्या बोलते हो बराबर की नहीं?
Absolutely.
Sure.
Dr. D'Cruz, thank you so much. I had one question actually. Do you think monsoon is going to make things worse? And how should we prepare ourselves to help the patients cope with monsoon and the added challenges?
You know, many people say whether heat and humidity will have an effect on COVID. You're asking specific to COVID, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, COVID, and then cancer treatments continue. The patients may come back. We will need to accommodate them. We will need to
really and then whether cold will stop the virus spread or will increase. So far, climatic change has not been shown to have any role with the COVID. Absolutely none. Hot, humidity, cold, this, that, and the other. But for me, the moment we have rains in a country like ours, waterborne diseases become a problem. Government setting up so many facilities in NSCI, in the dome, at the Daisar Naka, in open grounds. And I just know, Wankhede Stadium was one of the thoughts. And I'm just unsure the rains, how they're going to look after all these facilities. So it will be a real challenge for our administration. I'm sure they're going to put their minds to it to make it safe for our patients and the doctors as well. But apart from that, I would just say protect yourself. We already have the COVID infection. We have to battle our cancer. And please protect yourself from all these waterborne and other diseases that come, the malarias and other things that increase during that time. You'll have to take added precaution and be safe from those diseases. We don't want a third problem that we need to deal. But apart from that, there are no other specific comments or advice that I can give for the coming monsoon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any question? Sorry.
No, I don't want to share one experience. My cousin was operated by Dr. D'Cruz during the COVID time at Apollo, and she was very happy with the experience.
Who's speaking? I can barely see.
Savita.
I'm Savita.
Hi, Savita. Hi.
Hi. Yeah, my cousin Rita Luhadia from Kishangarh. She was operated.
Yeah,
so she was very happy.
So I just took all precautions and I've done a fair number of cases because I'm a firm believer that if you don't operate cancer, keep it growing for 3, 4, 5 months, 3, 4, 5 weeks, the stage will go from 1 to 2. And when you have stage 1, I have 90% cure rate. The moment it comes to stage 2, it becomes 70%. 20% of my patients, just because of waiting, are going to have a compromised outcome, even if I do the surgery, the same surgery. So it is better, take all precautions, patients cooperate, everybody has this self-preservation. And at Apollo, we kind of put a system in place where we try to keep the risk absolutely minimum to our patients. I know there's no foolproof system. We've zoned the hospital, we give appointments staggered, we test our patients pre-op, we kind of have separate operation theaters so that there's no crowding, no taking in patients very quickly. Exactly the question that Vandana asked. And I guess with a little bit of luck and with support from the Almighty, we'll do our best and continue to do our best for our patients. Despite COVID, we have to treat cancer. Thank you.
Dr. D'Cruz, I know we are much beyond time, but there's one more question. I think people are thinking this is the best way to catch hold of you. It's
I'm always available. Huh?
Calcium becoming too low, getting tetany and twitches, underwent total thyroidectomy long ago, parathyroid hormone showing less than 1 and heavy doses of calcium not raising it. What to do, sir?
So basically it's a combination. We'll have to give you calcium, we'll have to give you vitamin D, and we will have to test your magnesium levels. Where is the patient based? If I can see them or I can help them through a good endocrinologist, that may be the best method by which we can help you.
Okay, they haven't written where they are from, but I'm sure she's on the line and he or she has heard it.
So if you can give her my contact, I would be very happy to help them. And I would, this unfortunately happens in some patients, despite whoever the surgeon is, however good the surgery is, when we are doing cancer, there are multiple nodes. We try our best to avoid it. I have gone all over the country operating thyroid and demonstrating thyroid, just with the belief that the parathyroids are the most important, but yet, even in the best of hands, the complication rates of parathyroid could be 3%, 4%, 5%, depending on the type of tumor that we are doing. But if you can take this question offline, give them my contact, I'll be very happy to guide them. Or Vandana can be in touch with them. You can give me the details, find out from where they are, Vandana, Jyoti, anybody, and I will surely guide the patient.
Sure, thank you. I know you already spoke about motivation, but is it very difficult with your co-workers? Are they very scared? How do you motivate them? And are the patients, are they prepared for the surgery, or you have to work on them also for, like especially during COVID times?
No, so some patients who come to the hospital generally are not scared. I tell them that your surgery is not very important. We'll do it after 2, 3, 4 weeks. Last week I've done 3 surgeries. One patient has come 1,900 kilometers by road from Chhattisgarh. A doctor has come from the north of Karnataka with his son. He's been taking by road again, taking the necessary permissions. So that way we have done all the precautions. So then when patients come, they are not really scared. For them, the cancer is the bigger priority. I had a patient who went to at least 5 hospitals in this city, and then some were COVID positive. Some doctors were scared to operate them. Finally, he came to me, he had my name as well, and I just operated and discharged him today. So people do get scared, and you will have a section of doctors who just don't want to come out. Then there'll be some who will take all the precautions and treat. And then there'll be a group that will just treat without precautions. And I think we need to have the right blend. Maybe the people in the middle group need to be more. People who will triage their patients well, operate them with safety, ensure their safety, ensure safety of their relatives, ensure safety of their co-workers and themselves, and give the best results. And I think that's what we have to do. And for all these misconceptions, it's always education, 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 explaining people about the harmful effects, the precautions that they have to take. And I think that's the important part of treating.
Okay, so thank you very much, Dr. D'Cruz. We've gone to almost 1.5 hours. And thank you for your patience. And we thank you from all of us who are here. And we look forward to having you again, maybe, to have a discussion like this.
Anytime, if I can be of any help, please let me know. To V-Care, to patient care, to any care that has to do with health, I'm there to help you at any time.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. D'Cruz.
Welcome.